the roundabout, Florence met Mr. Rusty, who said he had something to show her. "It's very exciting," he said. "You look." "What is it?" said Florence. "It's so exciting I can hardly contain myself," said Mr. Rusty. You try blowing that." So Florence blew. Zebedee arrived. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Blowing bubbles." "Blowing bubbles?" "Bubbles. Bubbles? Bubbles. Do you know, for a moment I thought you said bubbles. I did." And Mr. Rusty confirmed that they were, in fact, blowing bubbles. "Do you want to try?" asked Florence. "Well, I think I'd better," said Zebedee. So he did. "Ah! You can take it if you want to," said Mr. Rusty. "Thank you," said Florence. "I can think of someone who'd love it," said Zebedee. "Dougal," said Florence. "Of course." What was that? What was that? I hate an unexplained noise. What is going on? Bubbles. "Bubbles?" said Dougal. "Now don't start. Don't start what? And explain your bubbles." "You blow in this," said Florence. "Good heavens," said Dougal, following his bubble. The train arrived while Dougal was following his bubble, and Florence could see they were on a collision course. "Look out, Dougal," she called. Too late. "Ah! Madam," said Dougal. The train got quite heated. Fancy a grown dog playing with bubbles. Really? Huh. It'll be Dolly's next. "I hope you get your lines crossed," shouted Dougal. Ermintrude came along. "Oh, I don't believe it. Bubbles in the sky. I haven't blown a bubble for years. Oh, you'll think me an old softy, but could I have a try?" And she sat down, quite overcome with the prospect of blowing bubbles. "I've run out of bubbles," said Florence. "Oh dear," said Ermintrude. "What a pity. Just when I got all excited. Can't we find some?" "A cow blowing bubbles, they'll never believe it." The train came back. And Zebedee arrived. They told him the bubble blowing was over because all the bubbles were lost. "Oh, well, I think I can do something about that," he said. But he somehow got it a bit wrong. "I'm forever blowing, but whoops!" Florence was in the garden, wondering where everyone was. Where can they all be? She wondered. "I expect you're wondering where everyone is," said Brian. "So I shall, without any ado, tell you. Your shaggy friend has a musical problem and he requires help." It was true. Dougal was trying to load his piano onto the train. "Haven't you got any bigger trucks?" This one wouldn't hold a thin mouse. Really. Piano? Thought Florence. If he doesn't hurry up, I shall scream, muttered the train. Shh. What are you doing, Dougal? I'm fishing off the end of Brighton Pier, said Dougal. I don't believe he's fishing at all, said Brian. I think he's being sarcastic. That's what I think. And Florence agreed. Dr. Beeching, where are you? Said the train. I beg your pardon, said Florence. Nothing, said the train. It's just that I would like to remind you that I am a passenger train, and I'm not used to carrying freight. Also, I should have been in crew last Thursday. Crew? For the steam train reunion. All the girls are going. Dougal tried to get the rest of his things in, without much success. Have you tried British road services? Said the train. I don't care for your attitude, said Dougal. And I don't care for your piano, said the train. I'll never get to Edinburgh at this rate, said Dougal. Edinburgh? Said Brian. Edinburgh? Said Florence. Yes, said Dougal. For the festival. Festival? Said Florence. Well, they couldn't get Liberace. What's all this then? Thought Brian. And Florence said she'd help if Dougal promised to keep calm. I am calm, said Dougal. You don't look very calm, said Brian. He's about as calm as an elephant stampede, said the train. Now, as I see it, said Florence very calmly, we've got to get that piano onto that train. Well, I'm glad we've established that, said the train. I was beginning to get worried. They pushed. Oh, I've done it. I've done it. No, not quite, said Florence. So they pushed some more. The relief. All done, said Florence. Anything not in will be left behind, said the train. If I'm any later, I'll be exposed to comment at Watford Junction. Hey, what about your whatnot? Said Brian. Whatnots I will not carry, said the train. Away you go then, said Florence. The train sighed. The Flying Scot would never have stood for this, she said. Hey-ho. St. George for England and St. Pancras for Scotland. Cats, said Dougal unexpectedly. I have been giving a lot of thought recently to the subject of cats. Now, it's always been a mystery to me why people keep cats when they could have a dog. Oh, Dougal, said Florence. People like cats because they're, yes, said Dougal. Well, they're pretty. Pretty is as pretty does, said Dougal. I'm pretty, but I don't go around chasing mice and spending half my time up trees, do I? But you can't climb trees, Dougal. How do you know? Said Dougal. Well, I just know, said Florence. Well, you're wrong, smarty boots, said Dougal. Do I hear the sounds of an argument? Said Ermintrude. I just happened to be passing, and I heard words. I hope no one's being catty. Funny you should say that, said Dougal. Very funny, said Florence. Brian arrived. Hello, dear thing. What do you think of cats? said Dougal. "Oh, I think they're jolly little creatures," said Ermintrude. "And they drink milk, so they must have a lot of common sense." "I like cats," said Brian. "You like anything," said Dougal. "What's all this interest in cats suddenly?" said Ermintrude. "They climb trees." "Well, who doesn't?" said Ermintrude. "Yes, who?" said Brian. "I don't know," said Florence. So they all went to see how good everyone was at climbing trees. "What I like about this place," said Ermintrude, "is that there's never a dull moment." "Well, I'm not too sure about this tree-climbing business," said Florence. "Why, dear?" said Ermintrude. "If it keeps them out of trouble." "What trouble?" said Florence. "I don't know, dear heart. Just something my old mother used to say." Dougal was trying out his cat-like qualities. "Nothing to it," he said. "I don't know what all the fuss is about." "Well, you're the only one making any fuss," said Ermintrude, up a little tree. "As you so rightly said, there's nothing to it. Is there?" "Come with me," said Dougal, grimly. "What's going on?" said Brian. "They're pretending to be cats," said Florence. "Cats, ma'am?" said Dillon. "Did I hear like, cats?" "Cats," said Florence. "I don't know, ma'am," said Dillon. "Whenever I hear the word cats, I feel like, sleepy." "Come on," sighed Florence. Dougal and Ermintrude were having a tree-climbing contest. "I think I win by a short leaf, dear heart," said Ermintrude. "What a lovely view. I think I can see the sea. I don't know, birds must have a lot of fun. Are you all right there? Do I detect a wobble?" "No, you do not detect a wobble. I am perfectly stable. I just feel a bit sick, that's all." "How are you going to get down?" said Florence. "We'll wait for autumn," they said. "What shall we do today?" said Florence. "Well, I've had a thought," said Zebedee. "Tell me," said Florence. "I want a photograph," said Zebedee. "What of?" said Florence, "or rather, who of?" "Everyone," said Zebedee. "I want it for my album, just in case." "In case of what?" But Zebedee didn't answer. "Zebedee wants a photograph." "Of me?" said Dougal. "Of everyone," said Florence. Oddly enough, Dougal had his camera with him. "Why, Dougal, you've got your camera with you," said Florence. "Hello, hello, hello," said Brian. "Hey, hold it right there, Snail. I have a little job for you." "Oh, ecstasy! Oh, bliss!" "We'll have less of the heavy sarcasm and more attention to what I say," said Dougal. "Please." Florence told Mr. Rusty about the photograph, and Mr. Rusty said he thought it was a good idea. Just in case. Dillon wondered where everyone was. It was so peaceful. "Not for long," said Ermintrude. Meanwhile, back at the camera, Florence and Mr. Rusty were also wondering where everyone was. So they went to look. "Well, I'm here," said Dougal. "Yes, but you're not exactly everyone, are you?" said Mr. Rusty. "And Zebedee wanted everyone, in case." "In case of what?" said Dougal. "Is he worried he's not going to see us again? Or something?" "I don't know," said Florence. "Well, I think it's very sinister," said Dougal. "I'm all ready," said Brian. But Mr. Rusty said they should try to get everyone. Zebedee wanted a photograph of everyone. "I wonder why," said Florence, worried. "Well, perhaps they're writing him out of the series," said Dougal. "Like they do, if you're not careful." "I've been ready for hours," said Brian. "We'll take one," said Mr. Rusty, "just in case. So get snapping, mollusk, and mind you get me right profile." The others are here, said Florence. Where have you been? Said Dougal. We've been waiting for days. All right, then. Everyone in position, please. Positions, said Brian. Where's the birdie, Dougal? Where's the what? Said Dougal. No good without the birdie. I don't believe it, said Dougal. Whatever next? Wait till I tell Tony. Birdies indeed. Watch the birdie? What? Said Dougal. What did you say? What? 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 There's no need to snap. I only said, watch the birdie. Got to have a birdie, said Mr. Rusty. No good without a birdie. No good at all. It's a well-known fact. And it's also a well-known fact, said Dougal, that if we don't take this picture soon, we'll be part of the news headlines. Oh, I'm sure they'll wait for us, Dougal, said Florence. I'll be a birdie, said Brian. But there was no need for this sacrifice. Watch me, said the birdie. Oh, it's flown away, said Mr. Rusty. Now there won't be any photograph, and posterity will forget we ever existed. Sic transit gloria mundi. I may cry, said Brian. How much longer? Said Dougal. I've got a crick in my neck. My left front foot's gone to sleep and my nerves are jangling. Absolutely jangling. Nearly finished, man. Have you caught the essential me? For Dylan was making a sculpture of Dougal. I wouldn't want anyone to see it before it's finished. Do you think that notice will keep them away? Asked Dougal. Meanwhile, Florence and Mr. Rusty were talking. What do you think of the international situation? Said Florence. I try not to, said Mr. Rusty. Very wise, said Florence. I wonder where Zebedee is. And they called him. And he arrived. There's something creative going on in the garden, he said. Oh, said Florence. Oh, said Ermintrude. I can't begin to tell you what's going on here. Try, said Florence. Have a guess, said Ermintrude. Go on. You've jumped over the moon, said Mr. Rusty. Silly thing, said Ermintrude. I don't do that anymore. And she went to see how Dougal's sculpture was coming on. Please, ma'am, said Dylan. It's not finished yet. We'll let you know, said Dougal. Oh, it's not finished yet, and they're going to let us know, said Ermintrude. Oh, the excitement of it all. Tra-la, tra-la. What? Said Florence. Secret? Dylan carried on working. 7 inches? Wow. What do you mean, wow? It's just like I have to rethink the nose, man. It's 7 inches across. Like, wow. That is an epic nose. Wow. Wow. It's nothing. Hello, hello, said Brian, much to Dylan's fury. He had to have silence while he was working, he said. So zip your screamer, said Dougal, rather coarsely. Oh, said Brian. Did you hear that? The train arrived. Dylan was in despair. Anyone want to go anywhere? Said the train. I just want silence, said Dylan, slightly hysterically. You've upset him now, said Dougal. Well, I don't know, I'm sure, said the train. Open your mouth and you get your funnel bitten off. It wasn't like this in the sidings at Clapham, I can tell you. And she left. I have never known anything like it, in all my puff, she said. Sorry, said Mr. McHenry. And Dillon said he really didn't know what he was doing anymore. No, doesn't look like it, said Dougal. Hello all, said Mr. McHenry. Dillon lost control. He's lost control. Who's not to be disturbed, said Mr. Rusty. I can't go on, said Dillon. I can't. Something went on.
I've something to say,
said the clay statue.
It's like, time for bed. Babies.
Zebedee had gathered together an orchestra, and the concert was about to begin. Follow me closely, he said, hopefully. And they all said they would. We are poised, said Brian. Ermintrude was worried. Am I doing it right, darlings? No, you're jolly well not, said Brian. I thought not. May we try again? Said Zebedee. Oh, silly old me. It was never like this in the Halle. Get your hooves out of it. No need to be like that, said Ermintrude. And Zebedee restarted. All together now, he said. No, ma'am, said Dillon. Follow the beat. Please. Ermintrude promised to try harder and apologized for holding them up. Fun, though, she said. Zebedee, undaunted, tried again. Hey, I've just noticed. It's a long way down, isn't it? Just play, said Dillon. I'm stuck. Oh, ma'am, said Dillon. I don't think Brian's very happy, said Florence. I'm stuck on a harp. Well, you would choose the harp, wouldn't you? Great oaf. I think you're rotten. Ermintrude was all for carrying on without the harp. So Zebedee said they'd better. Ignore all harp cues, he said. And drum cues, said Ermintrude. How humiliating, said Dougal. Florence thought they should get on, and so did Dillon. Ermintrude was prepared to give her all. I'm still stuck. Oh, what is the point of it all? Said Dougal. Come on, kitten on the keys, he said, which made Ermintrude very cross. Get off, said Dougal. Cheeky thing. Zebedee had one last try. Brian solved his particular problem. I'm unstuck, he said, And lovely with it. I think a lullaby to finish with, sighed Zebedee, as it's time for bed. Oh, said Dougal. Who's our flat friend? I've left my pack, said the card. Dougal and Florence considered this. I was getting a bad deal, said the card. Shuffled, said Florence. We shuffle ourselves, said the card. It's fun when you do it fast. Yes, we can imagine, they said. The card looked sad. They'll turn up, said Dougal. Cards usually do. I'm not going back, said the card. Well, they can't play without you, said Dougal. So they're sure to look, aren't they? Yes, you don't know some of them, said the card. That Queen of Spades, she's a right terror. Oh, said Florence. Oh, you wouldn't believe it, said the card. Tell us, they said. Well, she's jealous, said the card. Jealous. Dougal and Florence couldn't believe such things went on in a pack of cards. But they soon found out. I'll never be able to play Patience again, said Dougal. Where is he? Said the Queen of Spades. Oh, she looks a right madam, whispered Dougal. Where is he? Said the King of Clubs. Shall we tell? Said Dougal. Oh, I don't know, said Florence. Where is he? Asked the other cards. He's always getting out, and when we catch him, we're going to wallop him. Wallop him, they said. Wallop him well. Florence and Dougal thought the pack of cards was rather fierce for a pack of cards. Yes, they're awful, said the lost card. But the other cards asked Dougal and Florence to see it from their point of view. I mean, what was the good of a pack with one card missing? We can't be played with, they said. And that's no fun, they said. That's quite true, said Florence. Whose side are you on? The side of reason, said Florence. And the King and Queen thought that was very clever and asked everyone to give her a big hand. A pack with one missing is hopeless, said Florence. And all the cards cheered like anything. All right, I'll go back, said the Jack of Hearts. And they shuffled him in before he could say 3 note drums. Goodbye, they said. Care for a game of snap? Said Dougal. But Florence thought it was probably time for bed. All change, said the train. This is as far as I'm prepared to go. What? Said Dougal. What? What? What me know what's, said the train. There is a very steep bridge ahead, and you're all very heavy. Besides, I'm exhausted. But, said Florence. But me no buts, said the train tartly. My mind is made up. But we're passengers, said Florence. And some of us have even paid, said Dougal. The train backed out. Shh! You're backing out, said Dougal. I think you're both being very unreasonable, said the train. I'm rather hurt. I do my best to get you from one place to another, and I never complain. You're complaining now, said Dougal. Hush, said Florence. Have you seen that awful bridge? Said the train. And they were forced to admit that they hadn't seen any bridges, just lately. Well, look, said the train. So they looked. And there was the bridge. Nothing, said Dougal. Nothing, said the train. Nothing, said Florence. Afternoon all. That's all I need. A jolly laughing snail. The things I suffer. Morning all. Make up your mind. Evening all. Really, said Dougal. Really. And he went to investigate the bridge. Morning, said Brian. Now don't start that again, said Dougal. The train, having had a rest, pulled herself together and prepared to carry on. You know, I've never seen this bridge before, said Florence. Well, it's just been built, said Brian. Specially. Specially for what? Said Dougal. Yes, specially for what? Said Florence. Toffee, said Brian. Toffee? Said Dougal. Toffee? Did you say toffee? Toffee, said Florence. Toffee? Said the train. Yes, very runny toffee, said Brian. It got spilt, so they had to build a bridge. I wonder, mused Florence. What do you wonder? Eh? Can you drink it? Dougal was wondering that too. So Brian found some straws. Thank you, said Dougal. You're welcome, said Brian. Bliss. I hope you've left some, said Florence. For the rest of us. The train, seeing that the bridge was no longer necessary, decided to carry on the easy way. All aboard, she said. Old Man River, that old man river, he don't say nothing, we must know something. Oh dear. Oh dear. I appear to have fallen off a bridge. Hello, Dougal, said Florence. I have a question to ask you, said Dougal. Oh, yes, said Florence. I hope you won't mind. What is it? Well, do you feel, said Dougal, that you are achieving anything? Achieving anything? Said Florence. Yes, achieving anything, said Dougal. Anything at all. How do you mean, Dougal? Well, life. Life? Yes, life. Are you achieving anything in life? That's a very funny question, Dougal. Isn't it? No, it's not. I mean, do you think we should do some work? Or something? I think I'm a bit young for actual work, said Florence. Yes, but what about me, said Dougal. I know you'll laugh, but I can't help feeling I'm a drone. Morning, drone, said Brian. And what are you up to? Said Dougal. I'm drilling for oil, said Brian. Drilling for oil? Take no notice, said Dougal. Drilling for oil. Ha! Great clump. But Brian was certainly doing something. Dougal and Florence watched with interest. He's gone off his head, said Dougal. I knew it would happen sooner or later. Poor little Apeth. Dougal, he's working. That'll be the day. That will be the day. All ready, said Brian. For what? Said Dougal. Now don't be scathing, Dougal. Scathing? I'm not scathing. Yes, you are. Isn't it marvellous? I ask a simple question and I'm accused of scathe. Ready then? Said Brian. I am, said Florence. Ready for what? Said Dougal. All systems go, said Brian. I'm a genius. He's digging great holes in the garden, said Dougal. He's drilling, said Florence. Like he said. For oil, said Brian. Have you found any? Said Florence. Does Mogul know about this? Said Dougal. Hello, hello. What's all this then? Oh dear, said Florence. You seem to be digging in someone else's oil well. It's your friend, said Dougal. Remember? What are you doing on my patch? Said Brian. Hey, watch it, lad. You'll catch it now, said Dougal. Any oil in this garden belongs to me, said the lamp. Hello, young Florence. How are you? Doing nicely, I hope? I'm a misunderstood genius, said Brian. Hello, said Florence. You took the word out of my mouth, said Dougal. What shall we do? Said Florence. What about climbing Mount Everest? Now, be sensible, Dougal, please. Well, what's wrong with climbing Mount Everest? Pray? It's been done, said Florence. Twice. By a dog? Well, I don't feel like it. Well, that's a fine attitude, I must say. Oh, come on, Dougal. Where would we be if everyone said they didn't want to climb Mount Everest? Moping about in the foothills of life. Don't go on, Dougal. I shall go on as much as I like. Oh, look. I'm not at all sure I want to, said Dougal. It's a banana, said Florence. Call me Frank, said the banana. They considered this. I think, said Dougal heavily, it's going to be one of those days. Florence met a pear. And what's all this? Said Dougal. I'm a pear, said the pear. Then why is there only one of you? Said Dougal. You know, said Florence, I've never seen talking fruit before. Not ever. You're not the only one, said Dougal. A lemon appeared. Have you seen my friends? It asked. And what's your name, then? Said Dougal. Ron. Ron? Said Florence. But you can call me Mabel, said the lemon, laughing. I'm getting very confused, said Florence. You're not the only one, said Dougal. I've heard of fruit salad, but this is ridiculous. Frank. They decided to find out where all the fruit had come from, and they wondered if Dylan knew. Dylan was asleep. Does he know? Said Florence. He wouldn't know if his ears were on fire, said Dougal. What a day. They looked around for some more fruit and discovered a pineapple doing a little dance. If it says its name's Ada, I'll strike it, said Dougal. How did you know? Said the pineapple. An inspired guess, said Dougal. The pineapple laughed a lot and did another little dance and left. She's a card, our Ada, said the banana. You know, I don't think I can stand it, said Dougal. Please tell me it's not happening. But it was. An apple, said Florence. I'm not an apple, I'm a quince. A quince? Said Dougal. Yes, said the quince, but I'm in disguise. If you'll excuse me, said Dougal, I think I'll slip away. Why are you shouting, Dougal? Because I have just slipped on a banana skin. I wonder what happened to the banana, said Florence. I can't bring myself to think, said Dougal. Florence met Mr. Rusty. Oh, you've brought me some flowers, he said. How very touching. Oh, I'm sorry, said Florence. They're for someone else. I knew they were, said Mr. Rusty. I was only joking. Who are they for, then? Hey? Dylan, said Florence. Flowers for Dylan, said Zebedee. He needs flowers. He's invited me to a party, said Florence. Dougal was invited too. I wonder what's cooking, he said. Not carrots, I hope. Greetings, guests, said Dylan. What's cooking? Said Florence. It's a surprise, ma'am, said Dylan. I hope you're going to like it. For you, said Florence. Why, ma'am, you shouldn't have bothered. I didn't bother, said Dougal. It's the thought, Dougal. Yes, well, I thought I wouldn't bother. I'm here, said Brian. Oh, bully, said Dougal. Ermintrude. Here, dear heart. Hello. Oh, I am looking forward to this. I'm so hungry. Careful. She'll eat it all, hissed Dougal. Do I hear a little doggy voice? Where are you, dear boy? Show yourself. Yes, said Dougal. You're frightened and do eat too much, aren't you? Silly Billy. I'm a very small eater. Dylan said everything was ready. I hope you like it, he said. I wonder what it is, said Florence. Ready? Said Brian. Surely, said Dylan. Goody, said Brian. Dylan, very modestly, hoped they weren't expecting anything too grand. Is this place in a good food guide? Said Dougal. Ermintrude asked Brian if he'd take her in to dinner. I'd be delighted, said Brian. Help yourselves, said Dylan. Isn't he sweet? Dougal inspected everything very carefully. I wonder if there's afters, said Ermintrude. I love afters. I wonder if there's afters, said Florence. I love afters. Sit down. Really, Dougal? Just an appetizer? Said Dougal. Ready, men? I hope it's carrots, said Brian. Do you? Said Ermintrude. But it wasn't carrots. It was spaghetti. Florence tried some. Delicious, she said. Excuse me, said Ermintrude. Good, said Dylan. Very good, said Florence. Really, said Dougal. Any more? Said Brian. Well, I can spare a little, said Ermintrude. Ah, it brings tears to my eyes, said Zebedee. Everyone enjoying themselves? Yes, thank you very much, they said. Zebedee was very pleased, and he twirled with pleasure, so much that he exhausted himself. Oh, phew. Florence thanked Mr. Rusty. I see you've got your friends with you, said Zebedee. Yes, said Florence. Well, does everyone want to go to the garden? Said Zebedee. And they all said they did. Nothing would give them greater pleasure, they said. Well, I don't want to worry you, said Zebedee, which of course immediately made them very worried indeed. But I think it's going to pour with rain, said Zebedee. I get a funny feeling in my spring when the glass is falling, and from the feeling now, I think we're in for a deluge. Après-moi, of course. Mr. Rusty said he had the answer to the problem. Isn't he clever? Murmured the girls. Mr. Rusty's answer to the possible rain was umbrellas. He gave one to each of them, and a spare one to Florence. Just in case, he said. Just in case. How wise, said Zebedee, and they went. Not raining yet. Not raining yet. I wonder if Dougal knows it's going to rain. Dougal knew. Hello, Dougal. I see you've heard the news, said Dougal. What news? Said Florence. About the floods and typhoons, said Dougal. Bert Ford assures me they're coming, and I always believe what Bert says. Floods and typhoons? And monsoons and hurricanes, said Dougal. I've never seen Graham Parker look so happy. It isn't even raining yet, they said. You wait, said Dougal. This is going to make the great flood look like a puddle. A puddle. This got the others very worried indeed. I hope I haven't worried you, said Dougal. But they said they had their umbrellas, and they weren't worried at all. Not at all. Not at all, Not at all. They had their umbrellas, they said. I suppose no one thought of bringing a spare one, said Dougal, for any lovely friend you happened to meet. And they said they did happen to have a spare one, which with a few modifications would probably do for Dougal. Only just covers me barnet, said Dougal, but I suppose I can't be choosy. No, you can't, they said. Brian arrived. Afternoon, all. Lovely day. Lovely day, said Dougal, with the snow up to your eyebrows and the rain filling your wellies. What rain? Said Brian. Got a touch of sunstroke, have we? Hey? Oh, I like your hat. Suits you. The boy stood on the burning deck, whence all but he had fled. Soppy thing. What did you say? Said Florence. Oh, nothing, said Mr. Rusty. Guess what I've got here, said Florence. Give up, said Florence. Yes, I'll give up, said Mr. Rusty. It's a pie. Pie, said Zebedee. I made it myself, said Florence. It just needs cooking. Well, you'd better go and cook it then, said Zebedee. Maison Dougal at your service, said Dougal. What's your pleasure? I want to cook my pie, said Florence, in your stove. Pie, said Dougal. Pie, said Florence. That's a pie, said Dougal. Looks more like a tart to me. I don't know what you mean, said Florence. Well, why do you want to use my stove, said Dougal. It's pretty, said Florence. How feminine, murmured Mr. Rusty. What sort of pie, said Dougal. Not sure, said Florence. You're not sure, said Dougal. You come in here, pie in the oven, and then say you're not sure? What would Fanny say? Fanny who? Said Florence. I may faint. Now don't fuss, Dougal. That's very wise, said Mr. Rusty. My old granny used to say pies should never be fussed. Quite right, said Florence. So they left the pie to cook and went for a walk, which was a mistake. Oh, what does my little nose detect? A pie? Oh, doing a lot of bubbling. I better make sure it doesn't take off. And Brian put a stone on the pie to hold it down. Dylan also noticed something. What's that rare smell? He said. Am I dreaming? No. I think I'd better, investigate this. He went to the stove. That pie looks ready to, eat. Dylan had a fight with his conscience, and his conscience finally won. Ermintrude came along. What's this then? A pie? What's more, an unattended pie? People are very careless. Someone could quite easily eat that. Just as well I'm so honest. But what if it doesn't belong to anyone? Be a pity to waste it. I'll just add my secret ingredient and come back and eat that later. Dougal, too, was thinking about the pie, so he just added a little something for luck. Zebedee wondered where everyone was. What's cooking, he thought. They all came back in the direction of the pie. Gracious, said Florence. I'm very disappointed, said Ermintrude. It's not every day you find a pie and then discover it belongs to someone else. And I added my secret ingredient, too. Bear up, said Brian. Florence gave what she thought was a piece of the pie to Dougal. It was Brian's stone. My mum's pastry was tough, but this is ridiculous. The pie didn't seem to be a great success. Like tough. Like yours, said Brian. Watch it, said Dougal. I think we've had a failure, said Mr. Rusty. And they were all forced to agree. Well, you can't win 'em all, said Zebedee. Time for bed.